The stars were out there, cold and endless, watching silently as yet another war began. The first shot didn't come with the thunder of cannons or the scream of a fleet jumping into orbit. It arrived quietly, wrapped in coded data and radiation, flares a dead satellite returning to Earth orbit, broadcasting a signal no one could trace. From the outside, it looked harmless. Inside, it carried coordinates, a challenge, maybe even an invitation. The message was barely decoded before half of Earth's top brass were shouting over one another. The others just stared at it. 3 simple words in a dozen alien dialects. Come and prove it. It was signed with an emblem we didn't recognize, the symbol of a species we hadn't met yet, but we knew what it meant. The galaxy had been watching us, judging us, and now it wanted to see if humanity was worth taking seriously. Elite units across Earth were activated, special forces, veterans of the Mars campaign, the Jovian uprisings, even the forgotten dark zones beyond Titan's orbit. But in the end, only one was chosen, one Marine, battle-scarred and forged in fire, someone the suits in the command centers called expendable, someone who didn't look like a hero, but who had survived things no human should. He didn't speak much, barely acknowledged the crew that briefed him. They gave him a call sign, Gravedigger. Not because he dug graves, but because everywhere he went, the people trying to kill him ended up in one. Some admired him, some feared him. No one volunteered to join him on this mission. It wasn't that kind of deployment. They dropped him from orbit in a stealth pod, deep into uncharted space, far outside friendly territory. The pod was black, silent, shielded against most basic scans. His only company was a small AI assistant built into his neural interface. But even that was more of a passive observer. The brass didn't want interference. They wanted to see what a human could do. Alone, thought the surface of the alien world was colder than it looked. Sharp winds slicing through his armor weave, sand that hissed like ash underfoot, and skies boiling with green clouds. Nothing on this planet felt alive, yet movement haunted the edge of his vision. Shadows shifted wrong. Time stretched. He wasn't alone. Gravedigger had fought AI viruses that turned space stations into butchers' halls. He'd faced mutated pirates, spliced with alien DNA, and genocidal cults warping physics just to destroy a single planet. But this was something else. At first, it seemed like a game. Tests, skirmishes. He found himself stalked by creatures that didn't exist in any xenobiology database. Some were silent, intelligent. Others came in swarms, testing his reflexes, his gear, his instincts, and he answered each challenge the only way he knew, with bullets, with blades, with grit. He didn't talk. He didn't ask questions. He just fought. They were watching him through it all. Alien hunters. That's what Command started calling them once they intercepted a stray signal from the planet. Predatory, precise, well-armed and obsessed with combat. These weren't mindless beasts or machines. They were something worse. Collectors, gatherers of strength, of stories, of warriors. They had no interest in peace. They cared only for the hunt. And right now, humanity was their newest prey. But the hunters hadn't counted on one thing. Humans fight differently. We're chaotic, emotional, dangerous when cornered, even more terrifying when we're not. We improvise. We break the rules. And when you try to break us, we push back 10 times harder. The game changed after Gravedigger took down one of the senior alien hunters, torn out 2 of its 3 hearts, used parts of its own armor to rig traps and turn its weapons against its squad. That kill sent a message across the stars. Humans weren't just prey. We were predators too. More arrived, not just hunters, whole broods, carrying war markings and trophies of hundreds of species. The planet turned from a testing ground into a proving ground. They wanted to see more. Gravedigger gave them what they wanted. But even as he fought, something deeper was happening. He started finding ruins ancient, older than any known alien civilization. Etchings, not just in alien alphabets, but in early human script. Symbols carved into stone that only Earth linguists would recognize. It suggested something terrifying. Humans had been here before. Theories exploded across Earth once the transmissions were decoded. Were we seeded across the galaxy? Were we once part of something much bigger before history was rewritten, or lost? Were the hunters waiting for us to return? Or were they trying to stop us from remembering? Gravedigger didn't care about theories. He pressed deeper, following the trails of the fallen, tracking the hunt leaders, targeting alien sanctuaries like a one-man invasion. He crafted weapons from his enemies. He learned their languages not to speak, but to predict their moves, to read their fear. And somewhere along the line, the hunters started dying faster than they arrived. The galaxy feared them. They began to fear him. It should have ended there with one man, a machine, and a burning world. But the story took a turn no one could have seen coming. High above the planet, hidden in the gravitational shadow, a fleet arrived. Not human, not hunter, something else. They lanced into the system without a signal, without protocol, broadcasting no language ever seen. Their ships orbited like sharks, scanning debris, intercepting transmissions, apparently searching for something. They weren't allies. They weren't witnesses. They were coming for him. In the mountains of the outer hemisphere, under a ruined obelisk, Gravedigger stood with the plasma rifle sagging at his side, armored plating cracked and steaming. His breath fogged the visor. The blood alien and otherwise coated his chest like war paint. A sound filtered through the crumbling wind. A voice not from his comes, not from the AI, not even from the hunters. It came from the ruins. It was Earth Standard English, and it said only one thing: welcome home, human. He froze. Because for the first time in years, he didn't understand what came next. Are the hunters the real threat? Or are they merely the gatekeepers to something humanity forgot long ago? What was buried beneath this forgotten world? And why, after so many years of silence, were other species so afraid of humans discovering it? Far above, 3 alien ships, locked into high orbit, aligning their cannons with the planet's surface. In the distance, the storm turned purple. The air changed. Somewhere, something old was waking up, and this time, humanity didn't have the luxury of being underestimated. Nothing moved. In those few heartbeats after the voice spoke, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Gravedigger didn't blink, didn't speak. He tightened his grip on the plasma rifle, raising it slightly, eyes scanning the ruins around him. The obelisk loomed above, tall and broken, its surface covered in strange carvings worn down by centuries of sand and alien storms. Some were clearly symbols from the hunter culture, jagged, sharp, brutal, but others, they looked like letters, human letters, from lost tongues, ancient Earth dialects so old few even remembered them. Welcome home, the voice had said. His onboard AI tried pinging the frequency, but nothing came back. No signal, no source, nothing, like it had never happened. But Gravedigger knew what he'd heard, and it wasn't a hallucination. All his internal systems were green, no oxygen leaks, no toxins, no neurospikes in his blood. This wasn't a trick of the mind. Something was down there, or, rather, something was watching from below. That was when he felt it. A low vibration beneath his boots. Not seismic activity, not machinery. It was something deeper, rhythmic, like a pulse. He moved, backing away from the obelisk, then crouched and pressed a gloved hand to the ground. His fingers brushed over a fracture in the stone slab, and he felt a tiny flare of warmth, like touching old metal left too long in the sun. But the light was gone. The warmth faded. Whatever had stirred had gone dormant again. Or waiting. He didn't like waiting. Back in orbit, Earth's fast response stations were picking up the alien fleet now. Heavy ships, built for war. No response to hails, no movement yet. Every satellite image showed a formation pattern. 3 wings, locked into perfect symmetry. They weren't interested in the hunters. They weren't interested in the planet's surface. They were only focused on the human. The analysts on Earth started throwing out theories. Maybe they were some higher form of the hunters. Maybe they were an entirely new faction. Maybe they weren't even alive by our standards. None of it mattered to Gravedigger. He didn't care what they were, only what they were planning. He dropped into a cave system beneath the ruins. Cloaking tech kept his heat signature low. Scarce light filtered through cracks in the ceiling, casting broken rays across the stone floor. Strange markings followed the tunnel walls. Some were scratched fresh, with claw or blade. Others had clearly been there for centuries. There were bones too, some humanoid, some very much not. Whatever this place was, it had been used many times before. Tests, initiations, maybe burials. He couldn't read all the symbols, but some dates had been etched plainly. Earth calendar years, years from before humanity had left the solar system. The discovery hit like a brick. This wasn't just a battlefield. This was a record, a memory, planted here, waiting for someone like him to find it. That changed everything above him. Storm winds howled louder. Static hissed through his coms. His AI assistant, limited as it was, finally pinged back with a partial decryption. Not of the ruins, but a distanced signal buried deep in the subfrequency layers, embedded within the hunter's own transmissions. It repeated one line: "The test of blood has begun." Gravedigger knew that line, not from Earth docs or command briefings, but from older, buried info-military black files from missions marked erased. Ops, where entire squads disappeared on unexplored worlds. Missions where not one single soldier came back, but gear was later recovered, with messages carved into their armor. Asterisk, the test of blood has begun. Asterisk, it was said only to appear before the extinction of a species. Sometimes, the galaxy didn't just watch. Sometimes, it cleansed. That's what the hunters were. Then, gatekeepers. Not hunters for sport but for judgment. And humanity had just triggered something much, much bigger. But why now? Gravedigger activated his uplink, sent a simple request for update to Earth Command. Delay, no response. He wasn't surprised. Something was jamming deeper signals now. Not the hunters, not even the fleet above. Something older, something planetary. He pushed deeper into the tunnels. The air grew heavier, not with pressure, but weight, like a memory pressing on his lungs. Nothing made sense. And yet every step down felt like stepping into a place he'd always known. Other humans had clearly been here. Not explorers, warriors. Some of the sealed doors bore markings that matched early UN expeditionary corps. Others had strange sigils mixed with military command language, a hybrid of alien form and human function, like someone had joined them, or worse, become them. Then he found the chamber. It was circular, sunken, half-flooded with dark water reflecting flickers of light from some buried energy source. Metallic roots weaved around the edges, pulsing faintly. At the center stood a raised platform, stone and steel, fused strangely together. On it a figure, not alive, not new, a body wrapped in armor that mirrored his own but older, primitive. Beneath the visor, a dried skull, human, jaw broken, helmet cracked. Carved into the platform a message in shaky, human letters: "We thought we were alone." He stared at the words. It meant people had been taken, tested, maybe chosen, maybe discarded, maybe sent back to Earth long ago, their minds wiped, their histories bent into myths. How much had humanity forgotten? He reached for the skull but stopped, because behind him, the water moved. Something emerged, not big, wrong. Thin limbs, bent joints, a mask made of old alloy and bone. No eyes, no weapon he could see, but it looked at him without moving, like it knew him, or maybe remembered him from something older than memory. He raised his weapon. It didn't move, but behind it, more ripples broke the surface. One by one, more emerged. Dozens, each different, some clearly not human, but each wore remnants of armor that looked like pieces of Earth's early space. Militia badges, tags, half-melted flags. They were the lost. They didn't speak, but they didn't need to. In the air around them, words appeared, not in any language, but in images and memory spikes that slammed into his brain all at once. "You are the last test." Above the planet, the alien fleet began to shift. Internal thrusters igniting, the cannons pulsed to life, lifting toward the ruins where he now stood. They had found him, and they weren't coming to talk. The sky cracked with lightning. Far below, the beings in the chamber took a step back. Their message sent, their part was done. Now it was up to him. But Gravedigger didn't move. He looked up, past the ceiling, past the dirt, straight toward orbit. He was one man, one human, but that had always been enough. They feared humanity not because we were the strongest, not because we had the best tech, but because we endured, because when pushed to the brink, when everything was stripped away, we didn't surrender. We adapted, we evolved, and then we fought back. Gravedigger sealed his armor, loaded the last magnetic charge into his rifle, and as the first pulse from the alien fleet began to burn through the atmosphere, toward his location, he whispered 6 words that no human transmission ever recorded, but that every survivor would someday remember: "This planet doesn't belong to you." The blast lit the sky like a second sun, darkness followed, and beneath it, humanity's reckoning was only just beginning. Light exploded across the sky. From the surface, it looked like the whole planet caught fire. The alien fleet's first energy blast tore through the upper atmosphere like a blade through fabric. Clouds split apart, the storm screamed, static ignited along mountain ridge, and at the center of it all Gravedigger stood, unmoving, as the energy pulse smashed down toward him like a wrathful god. But the blast never hit. At the last second, the beam fractured midair, scattering into arcs of harmless light. It didn't bend. It didn't fizzle. It shattered like something ancient in the sky had intercepted it. Some kind of defense system not even hunters had seen before. Gravedigger stood quietly, smoke curling around him, rain hissing off his armor. The pulse faded, and somewhere deep within the ruins, metal groaned. A mechanism had woken up. Higher still. The alien fleet hesitated. Ships rotated uneasily. Something was wrong. Their most powerful cannon hadn't just missed, it had been interrupted, and they didn't know what did it. Back on Earth, fragments of the burst began reaching command. The energy signature was unlike anything the analysts had seen. Not hunter tech, not human. The readings bled into forms of radiation, outside known physics, spiking into spectra humanity hadn't even mapped yet. Deep in the Black Ops channels, the word precursor started getting tossed around. Several board members voted to pull the plug on the mission entirely. Call Gravedigger back. Let the quarantine be permanent. Whatever was on that planet, it didn't belong to humans, but others argued differently. If this was a precursor world, and a human was already inside it, then that meant humanity might have rights to it. Access. Even inheritance. Gravedigger didn't hear any of that. He only heard the wind and the sound of movement shifting through the caves behind him. The strange half-armored beings that emerged earlier had disappeared when the cannon fired. Not destroyed, just gone, like shadows slipping back into cracks in reality. But they'd passed a message before vanishing. You are the last test. He didn't know where that message had come from, whether it was transmitted directly into his mind or emitted from their armor tech, but it stuck in his head. The last test. Not a test. The test, meaning something else had come before him, maybe countless others, human or otherwise. All failed. He wasn't sure if that made him special or just the last to die. Still, he moved with purpose now. The ruins were shifting, stone walls sliding quietly aside, old pathways opening, lit by a ghostly glow that didn't come from bulbs or wires. The air thickened as he walked, like entering sacred ground. Every footstep echoed. Further in. The carvings became clearer. Scenes. Depictions. Stories, etched into metal and stone like some ancient alien cathedral made to remember war. Not the hunter's war. One older, more brutal. And here humans were in it. Not many, but clearly drawn, standing alongside other species long gone, fighting an enemy made entirely of shadow and flame. The last panel showed Earth, blue, alive. Surrounded. Gravedigger turned away before he could see the end of that panel. He didn't have time to dwell on histories buried under billions of years. He still had a job to do. On the other side of the galaxy, a subplot had started unfolding that no one watching the mission had expected. A human colony ship, once thought lost en route to Epsilon Prime, had reappeared. No distress call, no damage reported, but scans from deep space relays detected it in the same system as Gravedigger. It wasn't supposed to be there. It was 20 light-years off course. And worse, it wasn't responding. Signals bounced off it uselessly. Probes sent ahead vanished. Command assumed it was a trick. Pirates, or worse, the hunters. But one engineer saw something different. The ship's ID signature was authentic. Terran core design, but the patterns in its movement, smooth, precise, without correction or drift, to perfect, like it wasn't being flown anymore. As Command debated what it meant, Gravedigger moved deeper into the heart of the precursor ruins. The caves bent into strange angles now, ones that made physical space feel warped. His AI began glinting. Timestamps flickered, audio feeds delayed, his HUD dimmed, randomly, like it couldn't keep track of reality here. Then the hum started, not from machines. From inside him. Through his implants, he dropped to a knee, clutching the side of his head. Pain shot behind his eyes. The hum wasn't noise. It was a signal, one vibrating at the edge of human perception. Old, not hostile exactly, but overwhelming. Then, all at once, it stopped. And something whispered. His name. Not his call sign. His real name. The one he hadn't heard since before the Mars campaign. Before the betrayals. Before everything. The whisper came from nowhere and everywhere, and it chilled him deeper than any alien scream ever had. What had found him, and how did it know him? When he could finally stand, his HUD tracked new energy sources ahead, not weapons, not electrical grids. What it found was stranger, a column of suspended light, pulsing upward into infinity. Hovering over it, a sphere hovered weightlessly, turning slowly, surrounded by spinning stone tablets. It wasn't a weapon, it was a map. the galaxy, zoomed in and out as he approached. Stars rearranging, systems shifting. Then it locked into position, showing thousands of blinking red icons, each one according to his HUD-matched lost human expedition logs. Dozens of missing ships, black sites, collapsed colonies. All the red blinking together like a warning or a trail. And in the center of it, Earth, still pulsing blue. He reached out, brushing a finger against the projection. The moment he did, every light in the map turned white, and in his mind, a new image slammed into visual overlay, something massive, coiled in orbit around a black hole, too big to be natural, too symmetrical. A station, not Hunter, older, still alive. Then the map vanished. Echoes of movement stirred again in the ruins, closer this time, not humanoid figures anymore, tones. Silent beasts, shaped in the image of war muscle built from metal, eyes glowing like suns. The hunters had sent in their next wave. Each was a weapon of precision, bred to hunt single targets across entire planets, and now they were hunting him. He bolted from the chamber, changing elevations, using broken gravity plates embedded in the walls to leap vertical shafts. Behind him, the beasts followed, sprinting effortlessly, tails arcing with energy as they closed in. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He just ran, because whatever the ruins had shown him, it wasn't over. He hadn't passed a test. He'd activated something, and the galaxy had just started to react. High above, the silent colony ship began to move, and on Earth, something happened no one expected. A burst signal from Gravedigger's neural mod, carried through ancient routing systems built into precursor tech, broke every firewall, every containment layer, and landed in the hands of civilians, subscribed to old emergency portals. A century-old warning sounded in every language. Asterisk, asterisk, if you're receiving this, we're not alone. Asterisk, asterisk, panic spread. Not every human feared alien life, but this wasn't about peaceful contact. This was about invitation. About a war humanity might have already been part of, and forgotten. And as the hounds closed around their new quarry, and the storm blackened above, and something massive shifted beneath the planet's crust, the last human standing on this world reached for his blade because, in the end, it was never about survival. It was about proof. Proof that humans aren't just part of the galaxy, we're built to take it back. The wind screamed across the ruins like a warning too late to matter. Gravedigger kept moving, his boots slamming against cracked stone floors and uneven metal as the hounds closed in. The beasts weren't making sound, no snarl, no growl, just the mechanical thrum of their motion, fast and fluid. They didn't rush like animals but hunted like orbital drones, made flesh, built only to eliminate. These weren't common foot soldiers of the alien hunters. These were elite weapons, silent approvers of death. He dug his heels into a banked ledge and spun, unloading a full magazine from his pulse rifle down the tunnel. The air ripped with force as the Haydn's rounds hit, punching through one beast's skull mid-lip, sending it twisting back into darkness. But the others didn't stop. They didn't even pause. The one down was instantly replaced by 4 more. He ran again, pushing through narrow walls that bent around him, ruins that bent space in quiet, invisible ways. His armor I tried to calculate their path, but it kept throwing errors. Nothing followed the math anymore. Strange architecture, precursor tech, hunter traps, alien fleets in orbit, human relics, ghosts in maps, everything converged to fast. And still, the question burned in his mind: who had set the test? Because someone had. That became clearer by the second. Someone or something far beyond the hunters, far older. The alien hunters may have been violent, precise, mighty in battle, but they weren't leading this. They were participants, just like him. The deeper he went, the more he saw signs of the past. Not just alien symbols, but human ones, not scrawled by explorers. They weren't markings of confusion. They were warnings, labeled in dead languages, drawn by people trained to hide meaning in plain sight. Soldiers, intelligence officers, survivalists. Some had lived down here long enough to build whole walls out of scavenged gear and stone. Some messages begged for rescue. Others said, keep away. But most simply repeated a number, burned on every surface. 73. His HUD flagged it dozens of times. It meant nothing in any alien code. No date formats, no coordinates. But it showed up over and over again. It was part of the test. It had to be. His AI managed to pick up one last clue before the signal degradation worsened. It wasn't just a number. 73 was the designation of a missing black site from early Earth expansion Project Horizon 73. Total loss recorded near the edge of uncharted space. Final report logged asset compromised by unknown entity. No recovery attempt was ever made. That the coordinates from that report matched the ones in his mission briefing. They knew Earth's command had known what this place might be. Even before the signal came back, they hadn't sent Gravedigger to explore, they sent him to confirm. Above the ruins, the sky began to change again. The alien fleet that had gone still after the failed blast now moved, slowly drifting like wolves around wounded prey. Their formations reshaped, no longer orbital blockade. They were forming a funnel, directing power, targeting not just him but the ruins themselves. Below, the chamber began, shaking. Stone split. Light bled through the fractures in the floor. It wasn't a weapon, it was a rise. Some kind of buried structure was coming online then. The sound came. It wasn't like the hum from earlier. This was different, bigger, lower, like thunder from inside a hollow planet. Gravedigger fell to his knees as the sound rattled his spine through his armor. Around him, more warnings blinked on his display. Gravitational flux, magnetic interference, phase instability, all screaming one thing. Something was waking up. He launched a signal up to Earth Command, but nothing reached back. Dead air. Even the emergency beacons were blind now. Was no one watching, or were they watching, and deciding not to respond? Betrayal curled like ash in the back of his throat. The silence wasn't natural, but maybe it was expected. The boss back home probably decided to let things play out. If he lived, they'd extract him and score a victory. If he died, they'd scrub any memory of it and call it a failed probe. But he wasn't going to die easy, not after how far he'd come, not after what he'd seen. He pushed forward, switching weapons, blades now. The hounds were too fast for rifle fire in close quarters. He lured the next ones into a narrowing chamber built like a ribcage, sharp walls, layered with broken arches, and used the terrain against them. He moved like something feral, timing charges, spinning through shadows, cutting through steel and bone. The air stank of melted circuits and something else he couldn't place. Some ancient chemical no longer in Earth's periodic tables. Bloody and dented. He stood over the last of the beasts, blade humming softly. The final one didn't try to lunge, it just stared at him, dying. Not with hate, with recognition, like a hunter, acknowledging another predator. It collapsed, and the ruin went quiet. No more hounds, no more echo, just the empty, endless sound of something coming. In the silence, his AI found one final signal, weak, hidden behind 10 layers of encryption built into the mission. Hardware, a voice recording, scratchy, human, female, clearly recorded on site. If you're hearing this, then the test isn't over. I don't know what we found here. I don't know if they chose us, or we chose wrong, but humanity. We've been here before. We left something behind, or we were left behind. We're not the first. We won't be the last. But if you're still breathing, don't let them finish it. The message cut off. Logged 37 years ago. Marked priorities. No hint of what happened to the speaker. But one word returned in his system. Diagnostics. 70-3. A deep quake slammed through the ruin. Walls bent. Gravity shifted. A new path opened behind the stone seal ahead of him. He stepped through, breathing heavy, numb to wounds. Adrenaline had replaced blood. Inside the chamber was an atmosphere impossible to describe. Like space itself had been bent inward, floating above. The dais in the center was a construct, not a weapon. A throne, occupied. A skeletal, massive, figure armor fused to built-in apparatus. Cables linked to the ceiling and walls. It didn't move, but it wasn't dead. Glowing lights flickered all across its chest. Panel, symbols, some alien, and some human. Mixed together, like parts of a forgotten species neither species wanted to claim anymore. Gravedigger approached, slow, uncertain. Every step buzzed against his neural interface. Pressure increased. He pulled closer, eyes narrowed, and saw the figure's hand shift, not as a threat, as a welcome. And with that movement, the storm outside reached its full fury. The alien fleet opened fire again, this time, not at him. At the planet's core. Beams fell like spears, destroying parts of the world from deep orbit. Volcanic wakes erupted across horizon lines. Mountains buckled. Oceans boiled along the coastlines. They weren't trying to kill him anymore. They were trying to destroy the tomb. Whatever was buried here, they wanted it erased. Even if it meant cracking the planet open to do it. He stood in the throne chamber, surrounded by the stench of ancient death and deeper life, standing before the figure that was part of this long-lost memory. Maybe this was the last echo of a war nobody wanted to remember. Maybe this was the commander of the first human hunt, or maybe the first failed hunter. Either way, the message was written everywhere now. Humans had always been part of this. They just forgot. But now, the galaxy was remembering them as the final warning sirens rang out, and the ground buckled, and the chamber lights dimmed to a smoldering burn. Gravedigger looked up into the void above and saw them storm jumpers. Not alien ships, human ones, old models, rusted, wounded, scarred, dozens, maybe hundreds, coming down fast, silent as death, weren't responding to Earth's command, weren't part of any fleet. And they were headed straight for the crash. Site somehow somewhere humanity had heard, and others were already arriving. The galaxy had started watching again. But now, it wasn't just to observe, it was preparing to intervene, and something under this world refused to be buried again. The descent of the human stormjumpers was silent, eerie, like war ghosts returning to a battlefield they were never supposed to see again. Gravedigger stood there, motionless, his armor scorched, his lungs burning with each breath. Around him, the chamber crackled with broken energy signatures, the throne pillar behind him pulsing in steady waves. The skeletal figure slumped in the center no longer moved, its last gesture frozen in time. Whatever power had once kept it alive was fading now, slipping into the walls, into the ruins, into him. Outside, the alien fleet began withdrawing, not in retreat, but in recognition. They had failed. They hadn't destroyed the ruins in time. Many humans had seen too much. Across systems, data packages spilled from hidden channels. Command on Earth scrambled as encrypted video feeds leaked beyond military firewalls. Civilian networks picked up distorted clips footage of the alien hunters, the buried construct, the impossible hybrid tech fusing human and alien. History into something older than both. The truth was out. Gravedigger stepped forward, kneeling by the throne. Up close, he could see enough. This wasn't a singular being. It was a merge, a fusion of human and alien DNA, integrated into the machine for who knows how long. A warrior, once like him, transformed into something else by the ruins. Dying here was never the end. It was part of the cycle. Maybe the real test hadn't been survival. Maybe it had been remembering. He placed one hand against the figure's armored chest. A spark jumped to his armor interface, and for a second images flooded his mind. A fire world burning, humans and alien hunters fighting side by side. Then betrayal, a signal from Earth One of abandonment. Evacuations cut mid-transmission, retreats ordered, one faction left alone to deal with an enemy that didn't follow rules or honor. That's when the gate had been sealed, and that's when the deathless throne had been created. This place wasn't just a ruin, it was a wound, a battlefield never healed. And now, he'd reopened it. The storm jumpers landed just beyond the mountain ridgeline, their engines burning air into bright scars in the twilight. None bore military insignia. Their hulls were mismatched, built from the graveyards of forgotten wars. Some looked like salvaged civilian crafts retrofitted into dropships. Others dragged behind them long scars of time and silence. They weren't here for orders. They were here for truth. A voice cracked through his cum line. Unclear, rough, real. If you're still alive in there, give us a sign. We got eyes on incoming storms, and we're not sure how long the ground will hold. Gravedigger tapped into his signal pack, bypassed encryption, and opened his full transmission. I have confirmation. This planet, this site, connects human origin with precursor level hybrid fusion, genetic memory. We were here before, maybe longer than we even know. Static answered. Then a long, slow reply. We guessed as much. We've seen it too. Places like this, pieces of it. How long? He asked. The voice hesitated. Hard to say. We've been hunting ghosts since Europa. Every time we find one, someone higher up tells us to shut it down. It's no accident we lost those colony ships. Gravedigger shut his eyes for a second. His mouth felt dry. Why'd you come now? Another pause. This one shorter. Because you stayed, and because someone finally didn't look away. Far above, the alien fleet made its final movement, folding in on itself like a dying organism. No shots fired, no declarations. They were gone before sensors could trace their exit. Not defeated, but curious, maybe even afraid. That was the truth behind it, wasn't it? For all their power, all their technology, the galaxy didn't fear human weapons, it feared what we might remember, what we used to be. Gravedigger left the throne chamber behind and stepped into the open. As the first storm jumper scouts reached the edge of the ruins, dirt blew across the platform. Explosions rumbled in the distance, ruptures, probably cracks forming where the alien fleet tried to destroy what they didn't understand. But the ruins had survived. Worse, so had humanity. One of the scouts removed her helmet as she approached, coughing on the wind. Her face was pale, eyes wide, not with fear, but something deeper, a realization. She looked past him toward the broken throne, the glyphs, the ancient map chamber behind, the lingering energy in the air. She didn't speak at first, just took it in. Then softly, "We thought we were climbing to the top of something." Gravedigger nodded. "Turns out, we've just been digging our way back." The storm jumpers began scanning the perimeter. Medtex tried patching his armor, not realizing some damages weren't repairable. His pulse rifle was empty, the blade cracked from the hound fight. His body could keep going, but something else felt spent. Different. Like he'd brought something out of the ruins with him. Another voice, newer, crackled in. "Earth Command." They'd re-established a feed through satellite bump. The voice was clean and dry, too polished to belong out here. "Sergeant, this is Terra Command. Please transmit full findings and remain on site. Support fleets en route. Direct control to be re-established shortly." He looked at the medic still working on sealing a crack in his armor. He clicked the mic once. "And if I don't?" Dead silence. Then a carefully worded reply. "You're deep in a black zone, soldier. Cooperation is strongly advised for re-entry protocol." He clicked it off, not answering. Beside him, the scout smirked. "Still think they're in charge?" "Not here. Not anymore." By the time the support fleets arrived, the storm jumpers were already unpacking data modules, cataloging relics, scanning the fused DNA inside the throne. The truth wasn't a secret anymore. Too many eyes had seen it. Too many ears had heard it. They uploaded the full logs, not to Earth Command but across open galactic networks. If humanity had already stood with the stars once, it was time we took back our place, not as newcomers, but as returning legends. For the first time in decades, Earth's story shifted. Messages began echoing through deep space, some from distant systems, long believed lost, human outposts unregistered by any modern fleet. Some had been running silent for generations. Others had joined alien coalitions, hiding what they really were. They began to speak, and all of them said one thing. "We remember." The alien hunters didn't strike again. They observed. They tried to predict, analyze, adapt, but you can't contain fire once it spreads. And humanity had finally remembered what it meant to burn. Gravedigger sat on the hillside days later, watching the sunset behind a shattered tower. The throne beneath the ruins had gone dark, its secrets shared, its silence broken. His rifle lay beside him, scavenged parts welded to its frame from too many species to name. A new kind of weapon now, not made for wars, made for survivors. He turned when the same scout from before sat beside him, handing over a ration bar and a water tin. Her hands were calloused, her eyes tired. "So what now?" she asked. Gravedigger didn't answer right away. The wind carried distant ship sounds, jumpers still arriving, people still digging. He looked down at the dirt, letting it run through his fingers. "Now we stop pretending we started small." She smiled slightly. "You really believe all that?" "Doesn't matter if I do," he said. "The galaxy does now." He stood slowly, pain lacing his spine. Far above, planets waited, old enemies stirring, older allies waking. The test had ended. Not in fire, not in a final battle, but in remembrance. And, for the first time in human history, that was enough to shake the stars. Some would try to erase it again, others would try to claim it, but the truth never stays buried forever, especially when it walks out on its own two legs. Gravedigger walked toward his ship, not as a lone marine, but as the first voice of something far larger. Behind him, others followed, storm jumpers, survivors, soldiers, civilians. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and it had never really been. Whatever came next wouldn't be easy, but the stars had started whispering again, and now they spoke in a language only humans remembered.